All right, so we have a new Maya scene open up here, and currently we have nothing in the scene, and that's because we actually need to bring in our dwarf rig. Now, before we actually do that, you might notice that some of my UI elements might be different than yours whenever you open up Maya. And that's because I've actually made some custom tweaks to the time slider down here, just so that it's a little bit easier to use when we're actually animating. So if we go over here to our animation preferences and open that up, and go toward the time slider preferences. So currently I have my height set to 2, and the default would be 1. So if you can see that when we change it to 1, that time slider is pretty small down there. And I like to work at a larger size just because it's a little bit easier to see. And when you're animating, the time slider is going to be really important. Now I also have the key tick size set to 3. By default, that would be set to 1. And the key tick size is basically the red line that appears whenever you have a keyframe set inside the time slider. So having it set to a value of 3 just means that red line is going to be quite a bit thicker, just making it easier to see. Now you'll notice that later on once we actually get into animation, but for now, if you want to just mimic my settings here, you can go ahead and change the height to 2 and the key tick size to 3. And then we'll go ahead and hit save. All right, and now let's go ahead and we need to actually reference in the dwarf rig. We don't want to actually open up the rig directly or import the rig. We actually want to use the Maya referencer. That way, that if there's ever any type of change that happens to the rig itself, if you're working on any type of production, you would find that happen quite often. You would need to make sure that you're actually referencing the rig in, because if there's actually a change made on the rig file itself, all you need to do is reload that reference and it's automatically going to update for you. So what we'll do is go up here to File, and then we'll choose Create Reference. And that's going to open up this browser window, and you can go ahead and navigate to wherever you saved off your project files, and then just open up the Dwarf Hero rig. We'll select it and choose Reference. And that's going to bring it directly in our scene here. And if we press 6 on our keyboard, you'll see the textures are popping in here. And this is our dwarf rig. Now, as I mentioned, if there's ever an update set for the actual rig itself, what we could do is go up here to File and choose Reference Editor. And then if we select the dwarf rig, we can actually go over here and choose Reload. That way, if there's ever a change actually set on the rig file itself, you would just hit that reload button and any changes would be reflected in here because the actual rig itself is being referenced in and we're not actually working directly in that rig file. And we'll go ahead and close that. So now that we have the rig referenced in, let's go ahead and continue on in the next clip and begin going over some of the basic manipulation that we have for this dwarf rig.